All right, OM System have released a brand new camera. It is this. This is the OM5 II. It's been a little while since we saw the original OM5, which was designed to be a nice, small, lightweight, travel-friendly kind of camera, which is exactly what it felt like, to be honest. Something that can stand up to, you know, some slightly harsher conditions while still retaining that very small form factor. Very, very easy to take out and about on something like maybe city traveling, but also, like I say, a little bit more adventure-y kind of thing, as you would expect from an OM System camera. That is exactly what the OM5 II feels like, but with some nice kind of upgrades, additions, refinements that I think just make it a better camera. The question of is it worth upgrading from the original OM5 is an interesting one, but we're going to look at it first and foremost as kind of a new camera, and then we'll talk about upgrading towards the end of the video. So importantly, obviously recently we've seen the OM3 from OM System, and of course before that we saw the OM1 Mark II as well. So there's kind of a nice hierarchy of cameras within the range, right? And they're really starting to fill out a good kind of stable of these different cameras, and there's a lot of nice lenses as well. This one definitely feels to me like a kind of travel friendly, or indeed a first camera kind of feel to it, in the sense that it's got good specs, but it's able to hold your hand if you want it to. There's a lot of fun things in here that we see from the OM3 as well, which is great to see. Things like the CP button on top of the camera, which stands for computational photography. Now, we saw this on the OM3, and it essentially gives you really quick access to the different modes like HDR, high resolution shot, multiple exposure, things like that, that can be an interesting way to shoot. And having it very quickly available like that just makes them feel a lot more accessible rather than having to kind of sift through menus to get to it. Otherwise, it's just a very dependable camera. The ergonomics have changed from the OM5, which is sometimes something that isn't obvious and doesn't stand out that much. But I've got to say, from picking this up the first time, it is immediately very comfortable in the hands, which I think is really important, especially on a camera that is so small. And the grip at the front is slightly more exaggerated, should we say, as well as this small thumb grip on the back, which I think makes a massive difference. Now, we did have a thumb grip on the back of the original OM5, as far as I can remember, but this definitely feels like it's protruding more, which just makes it so comfy to hold in one hand, which is not always the case on such a small camera like this. Inside the camera, we've got a 20 megapixel live MOS micro four thirds sensor, right? Which again is part of what allows the system to be so small, including with the lenses. So for example, this is the 12 to 45 millimeter, which is giving you an effective focal range of about 24 to 90, you know, full frame equivalent. But on a system that is so small, I just always love that about micro four thirds systems. I think that makes it perfect, like I said before, for things like travel, because it just is so small and light. In fact, the camera itself is only about 420 grams, which is amazing. We've also got the TruePic 9 processor in here, and then things like image stabilization. So again, that's quite impressive for such a small camera. 7.5 stops with sync IS lenses and 6.5 stop with other lenses. You know, if you want to shoot low light with a slow shutter speed, it's gonna be a lot easier to do that, or indeed handheld video as well. Now, 20 megapixels is not, you know, a massive amount of resolution, but you do have different ways of shooting with OM System cameras, which has just made it easier since the OM3 as well. So things like high res shot, which will take multiple shots and kind of stitch them together to give you a higher resolution. So handheld, that's going to shoot at 50 megapixels or 80 megapixels in the tripod mode as well. So that's a great way of getting those higher resolution shots if you want them. You've also got loads of other fun ways of shooting there, which I always think is really impressive about OM System cameras. It allows you to get so much of it right in camera, as opposed to then having to do things later or have additional accessories. So things like Live ND essentially allows you to apply an ND filter, but it's all done in camera, which is really smart. Focus stacking, HDR, multiple exposure as well. And then things that have been kind of staples as well for OM System cameras for a while. So Starry Sky, AF, Live Composite, which allows you to see a preview of long exposure shots, for example. It's just super useful. It means that they're always some of the most fun cameras that I use, because they just allow you to do so much in camera and really explore a lot of the kind of versatility and the range of photography that is available to you, which I just think is such a wonderful way to shoot with a camera. And I think that's partly why this feels like kind of an ideal first proper camera, which is a term that I never really like to use, but I do find myself using it, especially now, because there's just so much you can do with it. There's so much you can get right with it, and there's so much you can learn with it, right? You can start doing long exposure photography without having to buy any additional kind of accessories, without having to make lots of mistakes to kind of learn things, because you can use the built-in ND filter in camera, and you can use the live composite preview to see your long exposure shots before you've even taken it. It's just stuff like that that makes learning with a camera like this fantastic. And of course, as I've mentioned probably a dozen times at this point, ideal for travel. Now, I mentioned before about perfect for city traveling, but also for slightly more rugged situations. This is, of course, as most OM system cameras are, this is absolutely nicely weather sealed. Again, great for such a small camera. So it's IP53 certified. That means it's dust, splash, and freeze proof as well, which is great. And of course, it has that tech that allows the sensor to just get that dust off it. Again, great to see, especially if you take this to a slightly more dusty place. It's actually pretty fast as well, so that might be the new processor. So 30 frames a second in AFS mode or 10 frames a second in continuous autofocus mode. I think that's pretty good. And then you've got some decent video specs in here as well. Nothing crazy mind-blowing, but you can always step up to something like the OM1 II if you want to get slightly more out of the camera. But I think for what this is ideal. 4K 30 frames a second, for example, full HD up to 120 frames a second. And you do have things like OM log 400, a tally lamp on the front, for example, and the OM cinema modes that we've seen in previous cameras as well. So OM cinema 1 and 2, which give you just really nice looking footage without you really having to do anything to them in post, which is nice. Now, I said at the beginning, is this worth your time upgrading from the original OM5? It's a difficult one, right? This is easily the camera to go for if you're looking between those two cameras. There's just some really nice quality of life stuff. It is a better camera. It's got newer tech. It's faster. It's great. If you've got the original OM5 and you're looking to upgrade, I would imagine that it would make more sense to look at something like the OM3 or even maybe the OM1 II. I think you'll probably get more out of that if that's the kind of pathway you're looking at, as opposed to upgrading to the OM5 II. I think that this becomes the kind of default first camera within the OM system kind of stable of cameras. But I think if you've already got that original OM5 and you do want to upgrade, it's worth maybe looking a little bit higher up the range to get more out of that upgrade. But I mean, that said, this is still a wonderful camera to be shooting with. And absolutely, I could see myself taking this absolutely as my travel camera a lot, just purely because of the size, the quality you're able to still get, but with the size and the weight. It's just a wonderful way to be able to go out and shoot. Now you can check out the full spec of this camera, kind of everything you want to know, all the fun stuff, by heading over to parkcameras.com. There's a link down in the description so you can go see all of that stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. I'll see you in the next video. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.